By 1588, Spain was the preeminent power. Its overseas colonies spread over three continents in the New World: North America, South America, and Central America. These colonies sent vast quantities of gold back to Spain. Greetings. Before getting started, I would like to encourage you to subscribe to the Mossy Feet Books YouTube channel for more great content. I also entreat you to visit my website, www.mossyfeet.com. There you will find sample chapters, podcasts, and a slew of content and links to where you can buy my books. While visiting the website, you can subscribe to it and receive email notifications of when I publish a new book or other new content like this video and podcast. The episode is based on my book, Colonial American History Stories, 1215 through 1664. By 1588, England was a small, weak power with no colonies. The first attempt to plant a settlement in Roanoke had failed, and the status of the second attempt was unknown. England had to satisfy itself by having privateers picking off the occasional Spanish treasure ship with privateers. The Spanish king, Philip II, harbored designs on conquering England. During this time, Spain controlled the Netherlands. The Dutch had revolted beginning in 1568, sparking a war that would last until 1648. The English had supported the Dutch in their struggle, incensing King Philip. Philip had another beef against England. He had been co-monarch of England with his wife Mary II in 1558. Mary died, severing his ties with the country. His sister-in-law was Elizabeth I, Queen of England. Spain was Catholic and England was Protestant. Philip considered his sister-in-law, as well as most of England, heretics. Philip was also growing tired of the English raids on his ships. He determined to invade the island and the annoying raids on his ship, convert the English to Catholicism, and get revenge for English support for the Dutch rebels. He attempted to assemble a huge fleet in secret. He planned to launch this invasion in 1587. However, the English learned of it and sent Sir Francis Drake to attack this fleet, which was assembling in Cadiz, Spain. His raid set Spanish plans back by a year. In 1588, Philip had assembled a 130-ship fleet. The ships had 1,500 brass guns and 1,000 iron guns. The fleet included 8,000 sailors and 18,000 soldiers. He staged an army of about 30,000 men in the Netherlands to use as an invasion force. He planned to ferry these soldiers across the English Channel on barges, join those soldiers with the one on the fleet and near London, and capture it. The ships included many torture machines, including racks, pulleys, thumbscrews, iron virgins, and iron gridirons manned by Jesuit priests ready to use the devices to convert the heretics. He needed naval supremacy to complete his plans. To achieve this, he sailed his fleet out of the harbor on May the 8th. It took 2 full days for the fleet to clear the harbor. The ships assembled off the coast of England. The English, knowing the invasion was being planned, had also been busy. They had assembled a fleet of 200 ships, of which 30 were Royal Navy ships. The rest were an assortment of merchant ships, fishing ships, and other types of boats converted for wartime use. The English had more ships. However, the Spanish ships carried more firepower. The English ships were more maneuverable, and the cannon had longer ranges. The Spanish ships also had grappling hooks. They planned to maneuver close to the English ships, using grappling hooks to pull them close and engage in hand-to-hand fighting. This would give the English, with their bigger ships and larger crews, a distinct advantage. The English ships, more nimble, managed to avoid this scenario. The English had also captured some Spanish ships and learned a key fact. The Spanish artillerymen took a long time to reload their cannons after firing a volley. Since the Spanish and England were in peace negotiations, Philip had held his fleet in check. The discussions ended on July the 16th. 4 days later, the Spanish moved their ships into position, forming a crescent-shaped formation almost 7 miles long. The English moved their fleet into position that was upwind of the Spanish formation, giving the English superior maneuvering ability. At dawn on July 20th, the fleet advanced towards each other. The English ships fired at the ships from longer range. However, they inflicted little damage. By evening, the Spanish had lost only 2 ships, and these had collided with each other. The nimbler English ships avoided the grappling hooks. During the night, the English sent 8 fire ships into the midst of the Spanish fleet. These were usually old ships that had reached the end of their service, or ships quickly and cheaply built for the purpose. Favorable winds drove them into the Spanish fleet. The Spanish panicked and dispersed their fleet. Winds drove their ships into the shallower waters off the Dutch coast. Here, the smaller, nimbler English ships had the advantage over the large, cumbersome Spanish ships. Knowing the Spanish gunners had difficulty reloading their guns, the English ships would approach close but just out of range, drawing Spanish fire. They would then creep in closer, fire a devastating volley, and then hastily retreat. The English and Spanish by now ran out of cannonballs. The English loaded their ships with chains and whatever else they could find. They sank 5 Spanish ships and inflicted heavy damage on many more. The Spanish had had enough, broke formation, and fled north. The English ships pursued them. The Spanish sailed into a storm where the fierce winds further battered them. Many of these ships wrecked on the Ireland and Scottish coast. The Spanish lost over 2,000 dead and almost a third of their fleet. The English had lost about 50 ships. After the English had inflicted a humiliating defeat on the Spanish and infused themselves with the confidence the nation needed to become a major world power over the next 2 centuries. This episode is based upon my book, Colonial American History Stories, 1215 through 1664, available on the website www.mossyfeetbooks.com. The book is the first book in the 6-volume Timeline of United States History series. Discover some of the famous and almost forgotten historic stories of America. The story begins with the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215 and the beginnings of the concept of limited government, and ends, for now, with the beginning of the American Revolution in 1775. The articles in the book have much more detail, as well as articles not included in this podcast series. I encourage you to visit the website and subscribe to it. You can find my books locally at the Walnut Street Variety Shop in Batesville, Indiana. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you for listening.